So, okay, so we're just about to start this presentation part of it. I hope you've enjoyed. Can I just have a thumbs up or something just to let me know that everybody can hear me? A raised hands. Oh, brilliant! I can see that. Crikey, lots of raised hands. Brilliant. Okay, thank God, loads of you. Well, I hope you haven't lost too many of you. Great. Oh yeah. So yeah, we're going to do a bit of a go through a presentation now and on it. And first of all, we're just going to show you how we collect off stallion. This was actually one we did with Big Star earlier on Sunday, I think it was, and just how we actually collect and do the stallion. So let's just see if this will work. So yeah, this is a collection. So the stallion comes into the breeding shed, and one of the first things we do, we wash the penis off to make sure it's nice and clean. He's obviously used to this to do this, and we did a little bit of research. This removes 80% of the bacteria contaminating. Looks like the video's a bit speeded up there, but Josh is doing it quite quick. I don't know how he. Anyway, so I can't control the speed of the video. So yeah, he doesn't normally wash it off that quickly. So the collection might be just as quick. I'll just pause it and see if I'll start again any slower. Maybe he's just very quick at washing off. I don't know. But anyway, so we wash it off, and that can remove 80% of the bacterial contamination. And it's quite simple to see. You don't wash a stallion off. You look in the semen pot, it's dirty and grimy. You wash a stallion, it's much, much cleaner. So the stallion presented the dummy, and as you can see, he's done this loads of times. Most stallions are susceptible to this same, but there are some that want to go on the teaser mare. As I say, I think this is done in slightly quick time. I don't know why it's going slightly fast, but anyway, it gives you a bit of an idea. He's actually obviously done it a lot quicker. And we've got a bit of a competition now. We're going to actually ask a bit of a weird one, but Josh is there, got the semen from Sunday, and we're going to ask you roughly how many straws do you think we're going to get from Sunday's collection? I'm going to give you all the calculations at the end. So literally, I think you've got to open your chat. Is that right, Faye?
Yep.
I remembered. You didn't. You didn't remember this one. So can you put on your chat roughly how many straws you think we got on Sunday's collection? Josh, well, he's always a comedian and he likes to playing for the camera. So, and we'll give you the answer. And the nearest, if there's two people, we'll have to do a bit of a pull one out the hat or something. We'll let you know the answer at that. So this was on Sunday's collection. Okay, right. So just moving on, if we will. Oops. Right. So the title of this lecture is "What is New in Equine Reproduction?" There's lots to go through, but we're sort of trying to stream it down a little bit. So to start with, first of all, obviously, again, I've got to thank our sponsors, Spillers, and obviously the British Breeding as well for hosting this tonight. I mean, I really couldn't have done this without them, and what a team, with Jane and Rachel and Eve. Sorry, I'm terrible at forgetting people's names, so please don't hold that against me. But you've done an amazing job behind the scenes, and I really, really do commend you for that. And thank you for helping us put this on tonight, and hopefully we're going to do lots more. So. Outline. So we're going to do a bit of an overview of Stallion AI. We're going to talk a bit about snippets, a little bit about post-castration epididymal. I hope you haven't had your tea yet, because I might be putting you off. Well, I hope you had your tea, because I hope you're going to put you off it. Not for the squeamish. We're talking about sex semen, oocyte recovery, ICSI, intercytic sperm injection. I always get that a little bit muddled up. Tissue banking, looking to the future in genomics and what's out there. And last, I don't know, personally, I think one of the best bits to last, elephant genetic preservation, which is, which is going to be hopefully quite interesting to some of you. So, just to start with, just present day, it's always quite confusing. That's why I think it's quite good to show this slide. We are two different places. We work very closely together, Twemlow's Stud Farm and Stallion AI Services. Everybody thinks we may be just one place, but actually we're two different places. And my brother, he runs all the mare side. We work very, very closely together. Obviously, it's great to send your mares there and you can have fresh semen. It's one of the most fertile ways of getting your mare involved. But we are different staff, different companies and everything else. And we obviously deal with the stallion collection side as well. Just a little about companies here, because it can get a bit confusing. We've got a few different companies that are under the umbrella of Stallion AI Services. One of them is called, if I actually flick on this, I can use a pen, is Cryogenetics company, and this is where we do all the. We've obviously got Stallion AI Services. Sorry, this is the foundation company, and this has been going on for 20 years now, and this is what we've been here. I say I've been doing this for over 30 years, but it was set up 20 years ago. We've got Cryogenetics. This is the storage and distribution. So all the tanks down there, all the storage side, all the distribution side is done by this logistics company and the shipping. So it ships the semen all over the world. We've actually formed now, since last year, we've got Stallion AI Services Ireland. So for all you Irish people out there, yes, we've got a good crowd out there. And just in case you're wondering what this is behind us, just there. We've got any rugby fans out there? Yeah, we've got Johnny Wilkinson's shirt out there. So I just got to rub a few people's noses. I know there are a few rugby fans out there. And Brendan, if you're watching from South Africa, yeah, I know you've got the web outlets cut off us this year, but we'll be getting it back next time. Don't you worry, when we do the Lions tour in a few years' time. But anyway, so that's in Stallion AI Services Ireland. Teresa, who's used to work with us, she's doing the work for us out there, doing a fantastic job down in Cork. So we've got a storage and distribution place out there to really service all of Southern Ireland. So that's one thing that we've got out there which really helps, and that's going absolutely great guns. Gemini Genetics, we saw this downstairs. This is a new evolution company, and I'm really passionate about this. I think this is really part of the future, especially when it comes to rare breeds. Chapelfield Conference Suites, you saw this over the other side in there. This is where we have all the conferences. Equine Reproduction Supplies. I haven't really spoken about this tonight, but this is another company run with a partner of mine called Ellen Mitchell, and she does, I must admit, she does it all on her own. Well, she does it with Helen as well, actually. So, she does a great job over there, and she sells all the canine and equine reproduction supplies. So, if you ever need supplies, that's where you go. And one quite interesting company is Elite Kennel Fertility. And that's what you saw down there, where we're collecting and freezing dogs. We were going to put this video on, but I was a bit behind time. So we were going to clap for our own NHS, but we'll move straight on from that. We've already done that bit. So this moves us on to the Elite Kennel Fertility. As I said, I spoke a bit about down. We only established it last year. It's sort of collaboration, really, myself, Kate Ashmore, who's a manager here, Eleanor Mitchell, who I've been working with for a long time now. I always get told off because it's I never say enough years, but I think it must be about 15 years now. Julian Barnfield, who I've known for a long, long time, good friend, and he's done so much work with dogs and breeding. He's an absolute foundation of knowledge. So collectively, I'd like to think we've got a really good team offering this service for Elite Kennel Fertility. So Stallion AI Services, where we are. So we're founded in 2000. We are a DEFRA approved quarantine center. We've frozen from over 1,200 stallions. In those tanks down there, we've got about 1,200 stallions from about 20,000 collections. And we've got some great associations out there. I've had the huge privilege, really, of being a trustee of the Rare Breed Survival Trust for many years. My father was president of it before he sadly passed away. And now I've had the great honor of being on the scientific committee as well, expert side. So I've left as a trustee and now I'm on the expert side of that. So they do such a great cause. Also, we do a lot with the zoological community, which is Gemini Genetics, and we do a lot of work, obviously, with universities like Harper Adams, we work closely with, and Nottingham Trent University, obviously with the research side. So before we just get on to the other bits and pieces, just some of our core services. You've seen a lot of them here today. We do fresh, chilled, and frozen semen collection, dummy training, semen sexing. We're going to talk about that in a minute. It's a really interesting topic. Freezing semen for exports and imports. We're doing quite a lot of imports now. Semen assessments, stallion marketing and sales, stallion vet and stud directory, the SPM20, the supplement as well. Stallion livery services. Emergency breeding preservation. This is the epididymal side, where if something sadly happens to an animal, we can get the testicles and we can preserve its sperm cells quite quickly. Cloning and genetic preservation, and semen storage and distribution. Really, we've got a huge base, really shipping semen all over the world. Just coming on to that, this just shows you what we did last year. We did about 6,500 straws we exported to 23 different countries, with a value of about £4.1 million. Just to put it in perspective, in 2012, we did about £50,000 to, I think it was about sort of 12 different countries. So it's really expanded, and the world is a very small place now. So the export market's huge. And just show you a bit about the exports. I always think it's quite interesting for you breeders out there. Do you think we import more than we export, or which way around? And I always thought we just imported so much more, but we had to get these findings, and Jan Rogers I think got these findings for really to find out when Brexit was happening how much exports and imports were. And actually there's between 2014 to 16 there was 6,400 imports. Believe it or not, there was nearly double the exports. So what does that tell us? That really tells us that we've got a great genetics in this country that the world need. And so we export nearly double than the amount we import. So sometimes we will think, oh, well, yes, we haven't necessarily got the best bloodlines. We've got some fantastic bloodlines, and they're really exportable as well. And that's the value that's happened. So that's a little bit about us. Now we're coming on to the exciting things. Now, before we step forward into these new sort of lines, I think it's quite important. I love these old videos of going back, and I was very kindly given these videos. Crikey, whoop. That didn't work well. Right, let's try again. So this is some video footage taken in the 1930s. This is how they used to collect semen from a stallion. So they used to let the stallion cover the mare. It looks like, I always make the joke, it looks like Jonathan Pike up there, and it looks like the postman's just turned up to give him a hand. The good health and safety as they happening. And they literally used to go in and scoop the semen out. And this is obviously a very sort of crude way of doing it, but this is the way, back in the 1930s, with producing horses for the German army, this is the way it was done. Luckily for now, things have moved on. And any of you think you've got a little bit of a tough job out there, or you're saying, God, I have a hard life and everything, just spare a thought for this guy. I don't know what he gets paid, but I don't think it's enough. Yeah, his poor chap's got to sit in this dummy mare. Luckily, we don't do this nowadays, so thank goodness. But yeah, I wouldn't like a big Irish draft stallion coming straight towards me. But I'm sure, anyway, better leave there because we're still before the watershed at the moment. Yeah, and I just, I think I pushed the wrong button. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I love this picture here. I think this horse's picture, his face, if there's an asterisk above it saying, you've got to be kidding, haven't you? You think I'm jumping on that? So, but yeah, I think I just love these pictures from the old ones. So, hopefully. So just moving on to new technologies now. What's out there at the moment? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the post-castration, if it's going to let me move on. Let's see if I can click it on here, see if that'll work. That's better. So the post-castration epididymal sperm extraction. Sorry for those that are a little bit squeamish. I have actually taken away quite a few pictures because I thought they might be not all for the faint-hearted, but I thought maybe doing a webinar more bespoke for people who are a bit more interested in this side of things, and we can actually maybe go through one and show how it is, because it's quite important how it's done. So we've been doing this for quite a few years now. We've done about 160 equine extractions at least. A lot of it always used to be through trauma. So we used to get the phone call saying something has happened to a stallion, they haven't salvaged the genetics. Can we get the testicles? And they can. So we take the epididymis off here, but now a lot more we're doing on routine castrations as well. So somebody decided, I want to castrate their stallion, they can send their testicles to us and we can actually extract the semen. It works very, very well. And we've done a lot of non-equine species as well. Just want to show you this. This is sperm cells, sometimes what it looks like pre-freeze. And my heart always goes now, every now and again, thinking, crikey, has this really, really worked? And this is the post-thaw, exactly the same sample post-thaw. So the epididymal side can work very, very well. And we can collect anything between 10 and 60 doses at a time. So it can work, you know, very, very well. I see there's quite a few questions coming. There's so many coming in. And what I might have to do is wait until the end a little bit. Otherwise, we might be here for a long, long time yet. So we can get anything between 10 and 60 doses per, but it does depend on the age of the animal, the size of the testicle, and so on. But it's a very effective way. It's quite interesting. I've been doing this for quite a few years, and this I had a phone call of this farmer up in Scotland. And he said, "Look, I just paid 10,000 guineas for this bull, and it's just broken its leg. Can you?" And actually, the vets rang up and they said, "Oh, we think." You know, this place down in Shropshire, they can do this. So we said, look, send us the testicles down and we'll have a go. And so he sent us the testicles down and we froze it. And I think it's about 2015. Hadn't heard anything for a while. And then all of a sudden, the phone rang up a couple of years later and he said, you know that semen you froze? And I said, yeah, it wasn't very good quality, but have it a go. You're not going to believe this, but from that bull that you collected, this is the calf we got for it, and this is one of the bulls that's been produced from that offspring, from those straws that we got. So it was a great success story, really, from something that, you know, we'd never actually done before. And from those straws, they successfully sired over 30 offspring from that, you know, devastating last-ditch attempt from when that animal had to be put down. And to that end, when he rang, he said, "You're not going to believe this, but I'm afraid it's hit the press as well." And sorry for those people abroad, you might not realise which paper this is, but we actually got on the front page of the Sun. I don't know whether that's something to be proud of or not. I don't think it's quite on page 3, but obviously there was no Brexit or anything else going on then. So yes, I don't know if it's my claim to fame or not, but yeah. So moving on. So with that side of things, you know, the epididymal side is a last-ditch attempt. Things we've got a factor time delay. We need those testicles to us fairly quickly. The freezing medium, is everything right going, Faye?
Yep, all good.
All good, good.
That's low on the battery.
Sorry. The freezing medium is really important when you freeze epididymal. What type of freezing medium you use. The condition of the animal, we find is sometimes if they've had a long illness, it doesn't work so well. And fertility results, yes, we've got some good fertility results, but we haven't got huge amounts of data. And sometimes the semen we get isn't very much. So we have to be prepared to try and freeze the semen for ICSI as well. So that got us thinking, if we can do it in a horse and we can do it in a bull, why don't we have a go at doing other species? And we're very lucky. We've been closely linked with Chester Zoo for quite some time in doing their work, some of their fertility work. So we got in contact with them and they said, yeah, when an animal dies, we'll send you the testicles and see how we get on. And we've had some, you know, some good success stories as well through this. And one we did was, we did a mouse deer, and I don't know whether anybody knows that, exceptionally rare. A mouse deer is about the size of a hair. It's quite small. As you can imagine, it produces some complications because its testicles are just as small. So trying to deal with this testicle that weighs barely or just over a gram is quite difficult. So we sort of did some different techniques and actually managed to, it's not the best semen in the world, but we don't know what mouse deer semen necessarily should look like. But this was post-thaw, it's 22% viability, which is obviously quite on the low side. But yeah, it was to us, it was sort of a good success story, and hopefully we might try and use some of that because they're so rare. We did an Omega horse as well, and this was great really because, you know, obviously it's more home to us. We have 29 past doses of this with a 59% viability. The viability is really key as well as the motility, and this really tells us how good good quality it is as well as the way it moves. So moving on, we've had a few questions about this tonight. It's about sexing semen. It's been around for quite some time. Cogent is one of the first sex sorting labs on the bovine side, and it's really taken off in the bovine world quite, with a huge force for quite some years. It's been edging into the equine world for quite some time now. But I think there's a question before, Faye, wasn't it? Was it just fresh semen? Can you remember what the question was? I think the question was about why we can't use frozen semen. Well, we'll come on to that maybe in a minute, but at the moment it's fresh semen only. We are just starting to do trials on frozen semen. We actually we froze a stallion yesterday, and so far the post-thaw, I think everything looked good. So that's all a thumbs up, but we've got to get some pregnancy results with it. It's in association with Cogent and Sexing Technologies, who are obviously the leading bovine companies. And this can really help with the sport horse, but particularly rare breeds, and this is where we're really, really focusing on it as well as others. And yeah, I think there's, we're one of the only places, obviously in the UK, and there's one other in France that are actually doing the sexing as well in conjunction with Sexing Technologies. So how does it work? I'm afraid I'm not a scientist, but I try and explain it in sort of layman's terms if I can. I think it's one of the only ways I can explain it, really. But anyway, it works basically on about the DNA. So the X-bearing sperm, the female sperm, has about 4% DNA. So I'm sure there's some jokes out there that there's more DNA in female sperm than there is male sperm. But so we can home in on that. And there's numerous methods that we're using. But generally, the way it's been done is we're using flow cytometry to try and home in on that extra 4%. And what they use is a flow cytometer. And the way it does it is if it's got 4% more DNA, that means if you put a stain in there, like a fluorescent stain, that sperm's going to shine 4% brighter. So if you can home in on that, and each individual, see these droplets here, each droplet has a single sperm in it, and it races through here, and it can actually identify the ones that the sperm cells that are shining ever so slightly brighter. And you've got this with a flow cytometer. You can see these two fields up here. You've got the X and Y, and that's facing one way. And if we turn it around laterally, we can actually draw a circle just around the X-bearing sperm, and the flow cytometer will just pick out those X-bearing, the ones, in other words, that have got the slightly more DNA. It gives a charge with a laser, a positive or negative charge, and opposites attract. So if it gives it a negative charge to the X-bearing sperm, you can see them coming down here, and they'll literally fire with it, and they've got two magnets, and that will draw the semen into this pot, and the waste goes further. So it's obviously it sounds simple, but actually it's a complex process. And let's go on to the next slide. Yep. And so we can sort from anything from about 4,000 sperm a second upwards, and we get about a 60% sort, which means if we get a large ejaculate, we can sort about 60% of that. Now you might say 4,000 sperm, that's great, that's really, it's a lot. But when you need millions, it takes quite a long time and quite a few machines to do it. And last year we were looking at an accuracy of 96%. So there is that 4% chance that maybe you get the wrong sex, but that's pretty accurate. And on the bull side, they're inseminating 4 million sperm cells. So that's why obviously they can get away with a bit less. Our dose that we're putting in with a horse is 40 million. But I don't know whether you remember before when I was saying, ideally, when we normally put a dose in, we're putting 250 million. But actually with 40 million, and the beauty about this machine, it really cleans up the sample. So virtually all those sperm cells are really, really good quality as well. And so far we've had some good results. And as I say down here, we're just looking into the frozen side and maybe even starting to do the ICSI, because that would be an easier method because we don't have to have so many sperm cells. So we might be able to have ICSI, male or female. This was with Shara last year when we started doing the sexing side, and you can see this one here. We put 96% purity. We put 41 million sperm cells, and this little black dot was it was a great moment, really. A lot of hard work on Edward's side and the Maillard side, really, to achieve this as well. And a really big thanks to Cogent and Sarah and everybody there. It's for the patience of putting it, because I'm afraid the equine semen just isn't as easy to handle as the bovine. It is a lot more trickier to handle. the machines to set up with it. So we have to get the quality really, really good. And where does it come into its foray? And it's really with the rare breeds. The rare breeds, these Suffolk punches we say were so rare. And this stallion last year, Holby Chiggy, was a great success story to me. And got this mare in foal, and she's due on about the second week in July. So a really exciting pivotal moment. I must admit, last year, you know, it was a lot of hard work, and to get that one mare in foal. And if you think, I think there's about 30 odd foals born each year, maybe from the Suffolk side, just say 15 male and 15 female. We need more females on the ground to keep these breeds going. So ideally, if we can just change that barometer ever so slightly in favor of the females, it can have hopefully some really good consequences, really trying to help the rare breeds. And the rare breed survival trust, the Suffolk Horse Society, they all helped with this. And it's you know, using these science and technologies, maybe these breeds stand a chance now as well. Obviously, there's lots of other things that need to help as well. So with the inbreed, why are these breeds so rare? And there's some of the things, when they get rare, some of what happens is the inbreeding coefficient comes in. And some of these breeds are exceptionally inbred, unfortunately. You know, you look at the Shires, 28%, the Clydesdales, 26%. I mean, the thoroughbreds, I think they've just gone up to 13% now. And I think this is what we've come into, we've got to learn, is that the inbreeding is what makes breed go extinct. It is obviously lack of numbers, but it's the inbreeding coefficient. And when you get inbreeding, unfortunately, it has knock-on effects to fertility. So in other words, we get stallions with smaller testicles, we get higher neonatal fatalities as well when they're being born. We get mares that are harder to get in foal. And this can be, and it can literally, we call it the extinction vortex. And the zoos use this a lot, saying, look, when you start this vortex, it literally spirals, and it's sometimes very difficult to get back out of it. And how it starts is inappropriate breeding or inbreeding, and so sometimes just lack of awareness of how certain animals should be bred. And there's lots of good computer systems, like, you know, Andy Dale's brought along, you know, called the Spark system, which is a single population animal record keeping population. Sorry if I said that slightly wrong, Andy. But he's an absolute guru on, you know, really on genetics and the inbreeding profiles of these animals. And when we can understand that, we can really do something about it. Because what happens with the extinction vortex, it speeds up. You get this inbreeding, you get more animals die, and then people stop breeding. So, and that can lead to extinction. And we can see these lovely, lovely animals literally disappearing in front of us. But there is a way out. There is a way that we can stop this. And this is some of the things we're going to do. We can talk about appropriate breeding. There's the living tissue bank, gene bank. There's the tissue freezing, semen import, getting in new genetics from abroad. So there's so much we can do when it comes to trying to change around the inbreeding issues that we have. So that's just, I'll come back to that maybe in a minute. Other things that new technologies is oocyte recovery, or OPU. And we're hearing about this a lot now, about ICSI and aspirating. I must admit, it's not my forte. I'm more the stallion side, or the stallion man. My brother does the mare side. But this is a way that you can aspirate these follicles to get these oocytes out. Normally it's done in the winter month where you have a lot more follicles. And sometimes you can get from 4, 10, maybe even more oocytes, depending on where the transitional mode that mare is in. And if you can aspirate these follicles, then they can be sent away to do ICSI. And there's quite a few places that are doing this now around the country with really, really good success. And this is a way, another way of getting mares pregnant. Another way, this is a bit of a sad case, or a very sad case, and this is a Cleveland Bay mare, and she unfortunately died last year. But they're very quick and actually got the oocytes off this mare, and they got 8 oocytes recovered, and they actually then were able to freeze them down. And this is a video courtesy of Karen Schneider, and they were able to do ICSI on those oocytes, sent them away. And this video is quite a poignant video. It's we've seen how it's a time-lapse camera. It takes a picture every 20 minutes and then speeds up. And we just show you, this is an actual horse embryo. It's not a human one or anything else, showing in a time-lapse incubator, actually dividing through and actually showing one of the first times ever, I think, a horse embryo dividing up. And this is done through the ICSI method. And then these are much easier to freeze down. Embryos are quite difficult, they're quite big, but when you get them at this early stage, they're much, much easier to freeze down once they've done the ICSI work as well. And from that one mare that sadly passed away, we've got 3 viable embryos matured and frozen. So, you know, they were sent away and then they're back in this country now. So the other side is the intercytic sperm injection. So this is what it's all about. So this is where we inject the one sperm cell into the oocyte. And as I say, this works very, very well now. And there's some, you know, especially in Italy, there's a place that's really perfected this. And they only need 1 sperm cell to do this. So any stallions that have died, they've got no semen left, or very little semen, I should say, left. This is a way of elongating or making sure that those genetics carry on for many, many years by just injecting 1 sperm cell. Oh, well, we've got a technical issue, but I think, yeah. And Edward's been doing did this ICSI work with Neve Lewis quite a few years ago, and Karen and his team. And this is one of the first, I think this was back in 2015 as well, produced a foal through the ICSI method. So I really think this is something that's going to be in the future. It's quite difficult. And we all say it only needs 1 sperm cell, don't we? Well, this video is going to show you how 1 sperm cell works. Oh, I think if it's going to work. Oh, that technical issue. And the answer to all my dreams. Who says flowers don't work? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So a bit of fun anyway. So yeah, always raises me a smile. So yeah, it only takes 1 at the end of the day. So the next thing, which is something I've explained downstairs, I think is really is about tissue banking and potential cloning side as well. So it's freezing and storing genetic material from an animal for preservation for future generation. And obviously, this is sort of really new science and technology, and I think it can play a huge part in preservation. But obviously, there is another side to it, and people, quite rightly so, can be skeptical about it and the issues surrounding cloning. And I remember when I first started doing AI 30 years ago, I got not a bit of backlash, but I got saying, you know, I'll be really messing with nature a little bit. And now that's fully accepted. The same with embryo transfer, but that's fully accepted. You know, maybe some people think the cloning is a bit of a step too far, but I think it's got its place in certain places, and I think it does have its benefits. So how does it work? So what we do is we take a cell from the horse that is to be cloned, we extract that DNA, take the DNA out of that horse. We can take a cell, an oocyte out of another mare, extract the DNA out of that one, replace it with the DNA from the cloned animal, and by an electrical impulse, we can actually start this process, and it starts to divide and reproduce. And you know, it's starting to get more perfected. This is not allowed in Europe, so this is all done in America, and it's done through a company called Biogen. You know, as you saw before, we've done it with Merca's Gem, the thoroughbred horse out there. You know, Gem Twist was a geldie; he could never breed. So this is obviously, he's one of those prolific show jumpers of all time, and now he's got 2 offspring out there. So you know, Biogen is the company we work with out in America, and they're Texas-based, and they've done lots of multi-species. And you know, we've done cats and dogs, and we've done multi-species. So we store the tissue sample here, and we send it on to America. I know it can be a bit contentious, but they've seen in some of the service dogs, it works incredibly well. So in other words, if you get a dog with a good trait, especially dogs for the blind or the police dogs inside of it, they have a lot less wastage. So in other words, they get something like normally a 30% failure rate. With a clone dog, it's only about 10%. So this is where it really can come into its own and really can actually help in certain aspects of that. Obviously, in the rare breed side, like with the stuff, sometimes we can increase the female contribution if it really got to dire straits. There's something we can for. Yes, I know it's expensive, but the price is slowly coming down on that. And obviously, we can, in theory, we can breed from geldings because obviously it can become a stallion. So, and we can, especially when it comes to rare breed, we can recall previously lost genetic lines back in the future. So we're really freezing for the future. So yes, hopefully we won't have to do it, but it is there just in case we might want to one day if this species was to disappear. How do we take it? Quite often it's just a tissue sample. The ear, obviously, from an animal that's died, the ear is one of the best places to do it. The skin is one of the fastest regenerating cells in the body, and we could actually use that skin sample to do that. So we get part of the ear and we freeze it down, a bit like freezing semen, really. We freeze it in a cryoprotection that protects that cell, and in there's your unique DNA. So then we can get that DNA and then produce, obviously, a like clone of that particular animal. But there are other developments and looking where they can do it from blood and urine and other issues as well, or other areas, sorry. So this is the Labisaurus in there before, and this is what we're dedicated this to. It's really just a tissue banking laboratory that we've used in there. And this is what Adam Henson, we have had Country File, we great privilege having Country File there a couple of times, and this is one thing he's brought up on this.
This is Mercus Gem. Remarkably, he's a clone of a horse called Gem Twist, who was renowned the world over for being one of the best show jumpers of all time. And he's a stallion, so he can breed. And depending on where your ethics lie, whether there's the willingness and the money, perhaps scientifically, this is another way of saving breeds from extinction.
So there you have it. I mean, I've been asked to turn the sound up a bit. Hopefully you can hear me okay now, hopefully. But that got us into thinking, if we can do this with horses and things, why can't we do it with other species? And this is what I led down, and really out there sort of announcing, we're just about to start a charity up, and I think it's, may have heard of the Millennium Seed Bank, so it stores all the seeds out there. But this is going to be one of the first living tissue banks for wild animals, and we've called it Nature's Safe, and SAFE is the acronym. It saying saving animals from extinction, and we've got Chester Zoo and really sort of good parties on board with this. So I was really a bit of a call out to you out there, really, to say we're really looking for help setting up this charity, and anybody got any ideas, I think it is so important. 25,000 species are going to go extinct in the next 3 years. It's not fake news. This is really happening. 1 million at risk, and we can do something about trying to preserve these genetic lines down and freezing them in time. And there's so much more we can do with these tissue samples. It's not just about cloning. We can do so much more with these tissue samples, looking at disease and how these breeds are inbred, and we can do a lot more with this tissue. We can, so it's going to be a great way, but we've got to be able to freeze them down in the correct way. So, and other work we've done work with, say, Chester Zoo. And Sarah, I hope you're watching out there. Sarah, I had the great privilege, really, of Sarah came on one of our courses, AI courses, recently, and she's got the last 2 white rhinos left at the safari park. I think they're on loan there. And it's really sad how it's come to this, really. And they're an icon of rare breeds and species, really. Rare species, the northern white rhino this is. But yeah, well, great work you're doing, Sarah, there. And it's just a shame that there's only 2 left, and it's obviously going to be virtually irreversible. And we do a lot of work. I must admit, I find it really passionate, being so close and up personal to these animals. I find it a huge honor and a privilege. I must admit, I never take it for granted any day, and I really thank all the people that let me get involved with this, because it's such a rewarding work. So You know, so with the black rhino, we frozen tissue sample down with this, as say we got part of its ear, and sadly it passed away. And yeah, this is some of the work we can do. We get part of its tissue, it's frozen in time. Once it's frozen, yes, we can't do anything with it now, but maybe in future generations or years. But if we don't preserve the genetics now, we've got nothing for the future. We've done other species as well. We've done camels. I've been out to Abu Dhabi and Dubai doing the camel. They're quite difficult to freeze the semen off some of these camels. So we did a bit of work. You saw our Big Star before doing a collection. It takes about 30 seconds. It takes about 10 minutes to collect off a camel. I'm glad we don't have to do 20 of them a day. So yeah, just a bit of a, well, not a quiz, but just a bit of an interesting fact. Do you think what's more worth more, the beauty camel or the racing camel? Don't worry, it's not a part of the old quiz tonight. I should have put that down. But believe it or not, it's the beauty camel. This camel is worth about 25 million dirhams, 6 million euros. I think we're in the wrong sport. Maybe we should go into camel breeding instead. So yeah, what is it? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What is it? Beauty is in the, yeah, and yeah, she's a beautiful animal, isn't she? So yeah, so. Anyway, coming on to sort of the last bit of this before we get on to the elephant side is what's the future? And I think genomics is going to play a massive part in how we breed our animals in the future, whether we like it or not. It is a quite, again, controversial side, is looking into the genomics, the genetics of certain breeds. And it's looking into the DNA side of things. And if we can identify certain DNA strands, we can actually look into certain traits. And it's revolutionized the dairy industry over the years. And I remember many years ago, the only way they used to do it, you have these bulls, you used to collect off the bulls, inseminate the cows, put these bulls in layoff farms and wait for those offspring to produce, grow up and produce milk. So that take many, many years before they would know whether that bull was a good bull for producing milk. But now, from a few hairs, they've identified the traits through DNA of these bulls, and straight away they can see if they've got the right genetic makeup. And it's like it can fast track really to see about the right genetics. And this has been in the dairy industry for quite some time. And I think it's going to start creeping in, and it already has done to a certain degree, a little bit in the equine industry. You know, in 2007, the horse genome was sequenced. There's about 2.7 billion DNA base pairs. And when we can uniquely identify them and the traits that they produce, then we may be able to pick out horses by numbers. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. This is obviously something that is going to come along and evolve. And it might be another way that we pick, buy, sell, breed our horses in the future by looking at genetics. Yes, you've got the other side, you've got the trainability and everything else that's got to come with that. But it's something that is coming, and I think it's something that will sort of be in the forefront of technology for many years, for future years to come. So I hope you enjoy that part of the. We've got one last bit, and it's really really to thank for Imke Loomis and her team. Imke, I spoke to the other day, and she said we could share these pictures, which is great. And I had the great privilege really of going out to South Africa, and you know, I've never been, you know, I'm very much distanced myself before from the zoological world, and it's been a great honor to be up close to these animals, and the work they're doing is quite immense. I just want to give you a bit of an insight where we're at, because I don't think people quite realize, we always think these animals are disappearing. I just want to see this graph on here. 10 million elephants at the early 20th century. There are 400,000 elephants left from 10 million. And by 2025, they reckon there's only going to be 160,000 left. And we've got to do something about it. I mean, I get quite emotional about it. And I think until you start to see these just amazing animals right in front of you, they really grab you by the heart. And there's still 100 elephants a day being poached. You know, and it's 9.5 million elephants killed in the last 100 years. And a pair of tusks, you know, fetches about $20,000. So they've got a bit of a price tag on them. So we've got to find ways of preserving these. Yes, we can do it, you know, obviously with living side and trying to pay that, but we've got to find scientifically a way that we can do it as well. And this is maybe one of the ways that we can do it, is preserving their genetics. the rhinos are obviously even in a poorer state, and we saw Sarah the other day. I mean, before with that black with the northern white rhino, there's only 2 left. I mean, Sudan was the last male. He died 2 years ago, and so there's no males left. There's obviously only the 2 females. But the rhinos are in a poor state, and you know their numbers have sort of dwindled, and the numbers that have been poached in. Rightly or wrongly, I thought the poaching was many years ago, and I know it still goes on now, but I didn't realize how it's actually sort of getting worse, and especially in 2014, you know, 1,200 rhinos poached, and it's really a sad way that they're going. We've got to do something about it. And you can just see by this graph where they're being poached as well. So it was more Zimbabwe, now a lot of it's in South Africa as well. So it's quite sad. So this video is just really the work that we were doing out there, and this is just showing. I was very privileged to be in a helicopter while they darted one of these elephants, and this is just going to show you how it went ahead. So we identify the elephants. This is all filmed through my mobile phone, so you have to forgive the footage. So we have the 2 elephants here. The helicopter comes in really quick. All happens literally in about 10 seconds. This is the one we're going to dart. I was looking the wrong way. I don't know if we can hear this, and you can just see the dart there and its backside. So these are wild elephants out in the ranges, and yes, obviously there's a little bit of trauma towards them, but there's no other way of obviously being able to preserve these animals, and we've got to do it before they all just disappear in front of us. So they dart the elephant, and the next thing, it takes about 10 minutes for the elephant to go down. And I was absolutely amazed how gracefully they went down. It's not like a horse where they can fall down, especially when they come round. You know, they literally, it's amazing. They literally, after about 10 minutes of giving the antidote, they just get on their feet and spring away. There's no thrashing around or anything. So these elephants, they go down with about 10 minutes. And we've got to be quite quick. It's a bit like, you know, when you sedate a horse, one of the first things the penis drops off. And I'm afraid that was my job as the penis holder for the week. But if you're going to do a job, you might as well get, and you had to just run out, grab that penis and hold it before it retracted in. So this is the team. You can see us all here. Yeah, this was for about 2 or 3 hours a day holding this, but it was, I know it sounds a bit weird, but it was just immense being able to so close. You get a few tourists turn up, and when they're doing this also, they monitor the elephants as well, and take lots of vital statistics, take measurements and everything else on this animal. It's great footage. Brendan took this, you know, from whatever, one of these drones to show. And we have a fire truck here just to sort of hose the elephant down if need be, if he gets a little bit too hot. So we start off usually about 6 o'clock in the morning before it gets too hot. A great team behind us. And Imke here and a team, you know, work hard, and Janine here who's working with her and doing a PhD project, and they yeah, see, sort of interesting pose there, but they collect the semen off them, and you can see here this is the ejaculate of this particular elephant, and sometimes we got really good amounts from this, and as soon as we got this, the lab, sometimes we'd set up a lab first thing in the morning, all prepared, but that sometimes was about an hour's drive away, but this semen's quite fragile. So the first thing we do, this is where the good old iceberg comes into its own. Instead of having to take all microscopes out there, we could have a quick look under the screen and say, yep, this looks good. It's swimming around, and so we better get this back to the lab. So we set up a bit of a temporary one out there, and literally got in the helicopter and flew it straight back. I must admit, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven at this stage. Playing with elephants, with semen, and a helicopter, it just doesn't come much better than this. And it's such a well-being as well for actually doing some good as well. It was just, it ticked every box that I do. So, and when we got it back there, And this is Elsa. Oh, she's a great card. Really fun. A laugh a minute and kept us all joking, kept us all going. This is some elephant semen here that you can see that we got back. Some of it was really, really good quality. And what we're trying to do is sort of produce some good extenders and mediums to freeze this semen. So we had a right sort of line of us here filling the straw. I think this elephant on this jacket gave us 300 straws on this one collection. So you can see it can have huge benefits and it can work very, very well. The other thing we did at the same time is we actually took part of its ear and actually froze that down as well. So we could get part of its genetics as well. So we froze that down, stored a bit of its genetics. So in the future, you know, God forbid this animal disappears, we can actually do something with those living tissue samples to hopefully stop these breeds from going extinct. And just lastly, really, you know, right at the end, you know, we did look at Orion. It's quite sad, really. This poor old lady. Don't worry, that these have just been darted. These two. She got a calf and a female, and the poachers had. How she survived it, I'll never know. But the poachers actually hacked off a horn, and every now and again they have to dart and clean it all out because it gets a little bit infected. But it's amazing. After this horrendous experience, she's managed to have a calf. Which we thought was just fantastic. So yeah, Imka here was scanning her to see whether she was actually in calf again, but unfortunately she wasn't. So it's a bit like the horse. You can see the follicles here. We were just seeing if how well. I don't know whether you know. Do you know what the closest living relative to a rhino is? Interesting. It's the horse. Yeah, believe it or not. I know they don't quite look the same, but it's one of the closest living relatives. So any of you watching out, I don't know whether you are today, but I just a big thumbs up. I miss you a lot, and what a great experience, and I can't wait to get out there again. So that finishes off that. We just got our quiz. Hopefully you've all put in a little bit of a how many straws we collected off Big Star on Sunday in that collection. I can tell you it's 53. So I don't know whether you anybody guessed 53. If there's a couple of you, we'll obviously maybe pull you out of a hat. Hopefully you're not too far away. It's going to cost me a fortune if you're in Australia to send you the champagne. I might just have to send you a voucher or something. Anyway, I thought I'd give you a few other statistics on the collection as well. He gave us 58 mils in the collection. The average stallion gives you about 50, but it does vary from stallion to stallion. We had one stallion gave us 150 mils this morning, but it wasn't quite so dense. But so volume isn't everything; it's the quality that counts. And he gave us 138 million sperm per mil. So and the average stallion is anything from 150 to 250 million. But his motility was 70%. His progressive was 65% in this collection. And he gave us a total concentration of 7.9 billion sperms in that collection. So the average stallion gives you between 7 and 10 billion sperm per collection. But that varies enormously from the age of the stallion, the size of the stallion, and obviously the well-being of the stallion. But the other thing we look at is what's progressive. So this is the total number. And then we look at how many of those are progressive. So he actually gave us 5 billion sperm cells. But we sell Big Star semen by the straw. So he was actually able to do 53 inseminations. Not all stallions normally 6 straws, but his, we do a lot with single straws. So really to finish off now, it's there's some upcoming webinars, an evening with Anna Ross, which will be, I'm sure will be a fantastic evening. That's what day is today, Faith? So that's in a week on Wednesday, isn't it? 7 o'clock, not to be missed. I'm sure that will be a great fun night. And don't worry, I think that night you won't be worried about seeing bits and pieces. You can eat your tea safely, I think, that night. Another one, evening with Lynn. Well, any evening with Lynn gets my box ticked. I think it's an evening that is well worth watching and surely be entertaining. Lynn's been, you know, a great entertainer and a wealth of, when it comes to breeding and dressage, there's no better lady in the country to talk about it than Lynn Crowden. So that's in a couple of weeks' time. So coming on just at the end, so we are nearly there. I appreciate I've gone on a bit. I'd like to put on more of these webinars, and you know, we wanted to do it ourselves and put them on here. And British Breeding said, you know, they're doing something similar, so why don't we join forces? But so, which is great, and we want to put more of these. So what I'd like to run, I'd like to hear from you really. If you want to see more of this, please let me know. Please let me know. I don't mind a bit of constructive criticism, as long as it's not too bad, obviously, but yeah, let us know. And a virtual, we think about running a virtual stallion show. So today you saw a snippet of stallions. So what I'm thinking of is maybe doing an even just on show jumping, stallions, and bringing them out, standing them up, trotting them up, maybe having a rider doing a bit of jumping because we didn't have our open day, and then do an eventing evening, a dressage evening, and maybe another one. So let me know if that ticks your box, because we can put it on. I can't do all in one evening because it's a bit of pressure on the team here. I've had a word with Edward. He's hopefully going to do a sort of behind the scenes at Twemlow Stud, look at the mare side and AI your mare and all you need to know. You know, there's a lot of questions out there that you might not need to know, and he can answer them. How to manage the problem mare or the subfertile mare. And also lots of others I'd like to just put on evenings, you know, fresh and chilled semen workshop. All you need to know for your mares, when that semen arrives, what do you need to look at? You know, what is the optimal sperm dose? Is it 1 straw? Is it 5 straws? Is it 30 mils you'd be putting in? Is it 50 mils? So I think that's more in depth and maybe more select. A stallion semen collection workshop. Post-insemination sperm evaluation for vets and studs. So what should they look for when they're looking down the microscope? What qualities? New advances in semen processing. You know, there's so much in that lab we can do now to really make the semen much better quality. We've got density gradients, all sorts of different things that we can do now at our disposal. We've got a lot of tools in the cupboard, and yeah, I'm willing to help and share them with you if it's interesting. How to manage the subfertile stallion? Well, this is always an interesting one, and there's so much you can do. And as I was saying before, it's not just in the lab; it's out in the barn. You know, it's what feed you put it on. It's where it's housed, what it's housed next to. These all pay a difference and make a massive difference to what that stallion produces at the end of it. So we look at I've never even showed you, that's one thing I missed. We have a CCTV in every single stallion box. So we look at how the stallion behaves and if he's getting stressed out. But right at the end, what webinars would you like to see? You know, let me know. I'm sure I can put them on, and we can put them on for you. And lastly, I've got to really thank our team, and thanks Spillers for sponsoring it. Thanks British Breeding for putting this on tonight. And after this, you're going to get a questionnaire, really, and it'd be great if you can fill it out. I'd love to hear from the questionnaire, or even email me direct, or WhatsApp me, or send me messages. I don't know, any way you can get that information to me, I'm all ears. But one thing we've got to is the questionnaire. We've done this free of charge tonight and everything else, and it'd be great. The Horse Trust was our chosen charity this year for our open day, but obviously our open day couldn't help. And I would urge you, I know it's a difficult one, but please, it'd be great if you can do a small or even a large donation to the Horse Trust. They do a great thing, and I should really know off the top of my head, but I have got, Jan sent me this piece of paper. For over 130 years, so since May 1886, the home of the rest horse has been provided retirement and respite for the working horses and ponies. And these are hard-working horses and really serve their nation and country in the police, the army, and other charities, and these and other horses to help the RDA. So the Horse Trust looks after the rescue horses, ponies, and donkeys who suffer the cruelty and neglect and need specialist treatment and care. And this is what the Horse Trust really lends itself to. The Horse Trust funds veterinary and social research, and evidence-based means that they are most best practice for caring for the herd and developing training for other organizations and charities. So it's a well worth charity. Now, please, I beg you to support it. But lastly, I couldn't do any of this without my team. And I have to admit, I always say this, I've got the most amazing team behind me. It's not me, it's them. Whether they're in the office, in the lab, on the yard, whatever they do, I wouldn't survive a day. So I've really got to give a big shout out to them. I couldn't survive a day without them. And you're a great team, and you watch my back all the time. And I can't go off and have all this fun and do my rare breeds bit and preservation bit without you. So just a big shout and a big thank you for that. So that finishes it off. I'm just going to ask you. Oh yeah, somebody did ask about what I do. Was it what I? Yeah. Yeah, my past. What I do out with my spare time. Was that right?
What's your favourite colour?
What's my Someone's asking what do I do outside. What's my favourite color? I must admit, I'm a bit of a pink man. Oh yeah, something. I'm president of the EEA, Equine Employers Association. Lucy, I don't know whether you're on this, but I think it's a great organisation. I do urge you to look into that. They really look after sort of employers and employees, and it's a great organisation. I've been really honoured to be part of the Rare Breed Survival Trust. I do a lot of parachuting. I've done about 1,600 jumps. I've got my PPL license. I've had the great honour, I must admit, just recently, and it's one of the biggest honours that I've had for a long time. I've just been made a DL, Deputy Lieutenant of Shropshire. So that's something I must admit is going to take up a bit more time at the moment, but I must admit that's been a really, really good, amazing honour to have. I must admit, when the letter arrived, I thought it wasn't for me, but so I helped the Lord Lieutenant of Shropshire, Anna Turner, to do her work. So it's a great honour. So yeah, there's lots of other stuff I do. Any other questions?
We've got a whole ton of questions.
Oh God!
That have come through. I think we might be here all night if we.
How do we? I mean,
and answer all of them. So.
Could I just find out from? I'd like to know from Rachel. Have we still got quite a few participants, or am I talking to myself? It'd just be nice to know they keep coming in.
We've still got 320.
We have still got quite a few people listening to us, so thank you very much for that. But Tullis, if you are willing to go through the questions after this, I know you have actually answered quite a few of them in the presentation, but if you're willing to go through them after it and answer any of them personally, but go back to the people individually, that would be fantastic. Or otherwise, a lot of this webinar will be online on the british-breeding.com website in a few days' time, so anyone can re-watch it again. And yeah.
Great. So, yeah. So, do you want to go through this question? Was that a yes, Rachel? These some questions.
You can answer them later afterwards if you wish.
No, I'm happy to carry on.
We've got plenty.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. We can go through a few perhaps, and then you could, any that we don't make, we could answer them directly afterwards. But
yeah.
I think one that's come up a couple of times is just regarding fresh semen.
Yeah.
And just the timing of how long that lasts. So it might be quite good to explain.
So the question is how long does fresh semen last? I presume in the mare, is it in some?
I think it's and from collection to insemination as well.
I'm afraid there's no sort of straight answer to this. I'm afraid it depends on the stallion and the semen quality. Some doesn't last very long at all, and some last a long time. But if you look at the averages, it's usually about. So a fresh collection can last sometimes 2 or 3 days, sometimes up to 5 days on some stallions. So it does vary, but I always like to think with fresh semen, it's going to last hopefully at least 24, 48 hours ideally. The mare, you always got to remember, the mare is the best place for this, the best environment for this. So we always say once it's in the mare, fresh semen can last sometimes a few days. So but it does vary from stallion to stallion.
And this does the fertility of the sperm deteriorate with ongoing collections?
Does the semen deteriorate with ongoing collections? It depends how often you're collecting off that stallion. So yes, over collecting or overuse of a stallion, the semen can deteriorate, but it comes down to the genetics of that stallion. So usually the size of the testicles. So some stallions, you're amazed, you could, especially like in the thoroughbred world, they can cover sort of 2, 3, sometimes 4 mares a day quite happily and get really good results. Other stallions, when we're collecting, only can do 1 mare. Now we're lucky in the AI world, we collect off a stallion once a day, and sometimes we got enough to do 3 or 4 mares. But yes, over collecting can deteriorate it, but it is stallion dependent.
What percentage of stallions are injured during the season?
What stallions are injured? I presume this is I
think it's related to collecting.
What stallions?
It's not. This
just says what stallions percentage injured. God, I think a very low, hardly any, touch wood. You're going to get injuries wherever, whatever you do. But I think the beauty about the dummy mare and that side of things, we keep the injuries to an absolute minimum. So it's a tiny percentage. I don't want to put the kiss of death on it, but we very rarely happens. Yeah. So yeah.
What temperature is your bath at?
My water bath's at 37 degrees. So that's somebody's asked the question. What that's for heating up the extenders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dressage appears more popular in Germany and Holland. Do you have many breeders in dressage asking for British semen?
Yes, dressage. Well, yeah, very much so. Yeah, yes. We think a lot of bloodlines do come from abroad. Don't get me wrong; they have got some amazing bloodlines abroad, obviously. But we have some great genetic lines here as well. And I think sometimes we should really look closer to home because we've got some amazing stallions on our doorstep. We really have, and you've just seen a barn full of them out there. So yeah, have a look at the genetics. But yes, don't get me wrong. There's Germany, Holland, Belgium, they have some fantastic bloodlines. We all know that, but we've also got some fantastic, and you saw that spreadsheet, there's more going out than coming in, which shows great for British breeding.
Lucinda had a mare that repeatedly rejected inseminations because she reacted to the extender. She went in foal to fresh. How often do you think this happens?
I hear this quite a bit. So this is the question, mare reacts to semen. So what do we do? We do hear this a lot. And sometimes, yes, it depends whether it's a maiden mare or sometimes when you're inseminating a mare, some mares do react to the semen. Usually washing out that mare can cure that problem. In that extender, we've got egg or milk or antibiotics, and you're going into a sterile environment, and sometimes that can cause inflammatory responses. So yes, sometimes mares do react more, and unfortunately the raw sample sometimes can be the better one, but it's only on a few mares. Certainly it does happen, but the vast majority of them are perfectly fine with different extenders and different mediums.
Someone's asked, you're putting 6 straws in a dose. Isn't that a risk currently with ICSI?
yeah, you're right. So 6 straws in a dose, is that a problem with ICSI? And you're right, it is. Because obviously those 6 straws, where they find, but we have to, we want the best conception rates for our mare owners, and we try and freeze at the optimal dose, and we try and produce a dose of semen that we think is going to get the pregnancy results. So if we were to put it in 1 straw, it ain't going to work very well conventionally. But yes, in theory, those 6 straws. But we've got to think, pregnancies is everything. I haven't really. There's so much more I could talk about tonight, so much more. But we can only take a snippet. We see how good it swims around the screen. We look at the viability, the morphology, but the one true test of how good that semen is the mare. And, she is the only thing that's really going to tell us how good that semen is. We've got all the bells and whistles down there, but still the mare is, as I say, we see some semen that looks not very good at all, but it's the only way we can freeze it. And it gets a lot of things involved. We have seen some stuff that looks brilliant and gets nothing involved. I mean, I can do a presentation. I did a presentation the other day all about the subfertile stallion and the traits and the issues associated with. Maybe that's something we can talk about later.
Yeah. What does a vet do differently with frozen compared to fresh?
As we were saying before, what's the difference between fresh and frozen when you're inseminating? Fresh semen can last 12, 24, sometimes 48 hours in the mare. The frozen semen can only last sometimes about 12 hours or maybe even 6 hours. So the timing is everything really with the frozen. So your vet has to be more precise of when that semen goes in. So in other words, it has to be really within 6 hours of ovulation. Most vets put it in post-ovulation. Some try and put it in before. So usually it's in after ovulation. And then you can, because it's all to do with, I don't know whether to bang on too much about it, but basically it's to do with the capacitation process. So in other words, all semen is capacitated when it's frozen and it's ready to fertilize that egg. But when it's capacitated, it doesn't live as long. So we've got to be closer to ovulation when we're AIing frozen. And that's the difference between fresh semen, where some semen's capacitated, some isn't, some's partially. So it's like it can wait around basically to fertilize the oocyte.
Do you get many mountain and moorlands in for collections?
No, we don't actually. No, and I think we've had a question on a rare breeds one here, as something about that as well.
Yeah.
So someone was asking, I think, on here on sex semen harvesting eggs. I was told recently they can harvest 20. Well, was there another one? Oh, here we go. Yeah, it's that one. I'm a new breeder and I'm running Scottish Pony. So we only have 200 Scottish Skyros Pony Association. We now have 200 left in the world of this primitive breeding, and we are planning to bring a new line of stallion in from France next year to breed from 2. My question would be, would it be a good idea to take samples from the stallion and freeze them down to safeguard the future? And this is what the Rare Breed Survival Trust has been doing for quite a few years now. So they've been freezing, genetically banking semen, yes, to reintroduce those genetics later on or now can have huge benefits. The beauty about frozen semen, it's freezing semen in time. So those genetics can be used in many years to come. So yes, I do think it's really worthwhile in freezing. I know you might say I've got a bit of a vested interest, I'm going to say that, but it does work. We've got to freeze for the future.
In terms of developments for improving quality of semen, can you do anything with semen that is not good after freezing? So the semen that's already been collected, but is basically useless because of the quality.
So is this, if you've got frozen semen that's not very good quality, the only way to do that is do ICSI. And ICSI is now coming on board. And I think ICSI is going to be one of the biggest developments we're going to see in the breeding industry. There's more people doing oocyte collection around the country. There was hardly any last year. And I think there's about 4 places now in the country. So yes, in theory, if poor quality semen, you can use the ICSI method. And that's why you can actually use poor quality semen to get mares in foal.
How many collections do you do on an average day?
Cool. We do between 15 and 20. I think we did 13 today. I think we did 17 yesterday. It varies obviously enormously, and that's why it's quite hard to work your day out. You mare owners suddenly all get on the phone, especially near a bank holiday weekend. It suddenly goes a bit crazy. So yeah, it's between 15 and 20, but it does vary. Sometimes it's only 5, but it's usually between 15 and 20 a day.
Okay. What determines good semen quality? Stallion genetics, feed, health? Is there any one more statistically significant?
Well, get your words out, Faye. I thought I was the dyslexic one. So say that again.
So what determines good semen quality? Stallion genetics, feed, health?
Very good question. What determines good? And again, I've got a whole nother presentation on this. Is on the subfertile stallion. So what? And it is genetics. A lot of it's genetics, but it's genetics plus environment. So there's 2 issues. So yes, certain genetic lines, they don't produce such good quality semen. We've talked about the inbreeding coefficient, the inbreeding issues that are associated with that, but also it's environmental issues as well. How that animal's been brought up. What, has it been given any drugs, antibiotics, well, not antibiotics, but steroids and things like that have a devastating effect on semen quality. So yes, genetics does play a part in it, and there's certain genes that are associated with fertility as well.
With regard to semen extender, is it only used in fresh semen?
No, semen extenders, you can use fresh semen without semen extender, but you have to be very quick. You have to really AI a mare within about 15-20 minutes. But generally, the extender is used to prolong the life of semen and to keep it going for an awful lot longer. So you mix it with that. It's not in the mare, it's not in the stallion. It needs some nutrition to keep it going. So yeah, it needs extender. Otherwise, it ain't gonna live. And with frozen extender, it's specialist as well on that side.
What's the average amount of mares a stallion standing with you could cover per season via AI? And what's the most amount of mares any one stallion has covered via AI in one season?
Oh, crikey. I'm afraid I don't know the answers to all that. But yeah, I mean, stallions, obviously big stars, got hundreds of offspring. We've got his semen far and wide all over the world. So he's got hundreds and hundreds of offspring, and he covered hundreds and hundreds, obviously mares a year all over the world. And that's the beauty about obviously AI. Some people might say it's a shrinking of gene pool, but when you've just got obviously so many countries out there, it's a way of spreading genetics as well. So yeah, I mean, we've had some great stallions in the past, like Mildor. He was getting, obviously well over 100+ mares a year. And we've had a lot of other stallions do the same. So yes, we have covered, hundreds of mares a year in theory that way.
Question asking how much Big Star semen is.
How much it is?
Yes.
God, they're telling me now. I know it's. I was getting into trouble for this because I don't always know all the ins and outs. But it's €1,000 per straw. So when we went back and saw, he's produced 53 straws before in that pot of semen we saw before. So he produced £53,000 or euros. So he's €1,000 per straw, £900 a straw. That's right.
Yep, yep.
Got that bit. Or he's £3,500 for a live pregnancy with live foal guarantee with fresh semen. Sorry, I get my tongue tied now.
Fresh chilled, yeah.
Fresh chilled, yeah.
On to the next question. With the canine, are there only certain vets who can do AI, or is it more all round now?
No, for normal insemination you can do it, but for laparoscopic insemination, frozen semen, it has to be done by a vet. So yeah.
Okay. How do you freeze tissue samples, and what's the process?
Oh, giving my away. Did you hear that? How do we freeze tissue samples? Well, giving away trade secrets now. So no, it's in the next stage. We're hopefully going to grow our cell lines. I'd like to think in the next sort of month or so. So yeah, it's a bit like the freezing semen. It's in a cryo vial, and in that cryo vial is you could say like an antifreeze. So this permeates the cells, and we chop the cells up into tiny little pieces so the cells are more exposed. So that antifreeze or that cryoprotectant can penetrate that cell. So when you freeze it, it doesn't damage that cell. So that's what we use with that's how we freeze cell line. That's how we freeze tissue down, and then we can thaw that out, and we literally put it in you could say like a feed or nutrition, and those cells start to grow and divide, and it's quite incredible what they can do. So that's what's called growing cell lines, and if you can get them to replicate, then you can obviously reproduce that cell time and time and time again.
Why don't thoroughbred breeders use AI?
Oh God, there's a loaded question. I don't know if you heard that one. Why don't thoroughbred users use AI? I've got to be very careful. That's up a whole can of worms. But I think quite realistic, we can see why, and a lot of it's to do with the inbreeding coefficient. A thoroughbred can physically cover 150, 200, maybe 250 mares a year physically. And if AI was to come in and they suddenly could do 2,000 or 3,000 mares, that could have huge, devastating effects really to the inbreeding coefficient. It's gone up by 1%, we think, to about 13%, which is still okay. But if it carries on going up like that, we could have lots of issues. So this is something we really have to be mindful of that side of it.
And do you think that the thoroughbred industry will ever embrace AI?
Do they? God. Oh, you're going to get me shot now. Are they going to embrace AI? I think it might come eventually, and with all new technologies, but there has to be constraints. And at the end of the day, it's traditional side of it doing natural covering, and that's the great side of the thoroughbred world. But obviously, obviously got my AI hat, and I think there's so many things that we can do to help, obviously, that side of it with AI and just looking at the semen. So do I think it's going to happen? Maybe one day, whether it's in my lifetime or not, I don't know. But we will see. Anyway.
Still on the thoroughbred topic.
Thoroughbred questions keep coming. There's a lot of thoroughbred breeders out there or something. Yeah.
Have any great thoroughbred genetics been preserved? Obviously unable to use now, but for the future. Has anyone found Shergar?
Oh, Shergar, well, I still think they're still looking for him. Yeah, I don't know where he ended up. I don't know whether they took any of his samples or skins. I don't know, to be fair, on that question. And on the genetic, I don't know whether any's been saved. But we do a lot of thoroughbred work, believe it or not. We do help the thoroughbred industry. We go out a lot to help on the fertilities, because there's so much we can do in our lab to look at the semen and to look at how they can cover these mares. So there's a lot we can help. Obviously, there's certain constraints and there's a line that we don't cross, but there's a lot that we've learned to help the thoroughbred horses and how they're managed. And management is everything about stallion. How you manage your stallion is how you get your results at the end of it. It's management of these animals that makes the big deal.
Does the Kennel Club allow AI, by the way? That's back to you, canine.
Canine, does Kennel Club allow AI? Yes, they do, but the bitch and the dog have got to have covered naturally beforehand to be able to start doing AI. after that. So they've got to be able to produce an offspring from a natural conception before they can do AI.
Okay, back to equine breeding.
Yeah, we've still got 193 people. I hope you don't. I'd be nice to know, are you getting bored yet? Because let me know if you are, because we put some hands up or something. Oh, 11 raised hands. Oh, 12 raised hands. Okay, yeah. So, so you want me to keep going, do you? Right. Okay. Yeah. Bring it on.
All right. Where does the UK stand compared to Europe with regards to the AI and future developments?
Sorry, I was watching all the people raising hands here. Just ask me the question again.
Right. Where does the UK stand compared to Europe with regards to AI and future developments with regards to breeding?
Where does what?
Where does the UK stand against Europe with the developments in the breeding?
Of AI?
Yeah.
I think it's a good question, that, because I've been into it in 30 years, and I think the rest of the world really has, been doing AI. I learned it out in New Zealand, actually. I went off to New Zealand and with the North and South Island, and they weren't really doing much in the UK, or very little. And it's really growing, out there. They had to do it and learn how to do it, came over here. And we're quite a traditional country, quite an old-fashioned country. And I think we're very much in our beliefs, and we used to do natural covering for years. So we were a while building up, but now we've really, obviously taken it on. And for the last quite a few years now, we really are, I think I'd like to think at the forefront of it as well, especially when it comes to technology. I think we're really pushing the boundaries of science. And there's so much we can do in that lab now that we could never do 10, 15 years ago.
How do you organise all the straws in the frozen tanks?
Yeah, those big vats in there. So we are just developed, actually, behind the scenes back-end system called SAINT. That stands for Stallion AI New Technology. So it's a new system we've just developed, and that was all on spreadsheets before, which was a bit of a nightmare. So that can actually, we put in all the data, and that can actually track and tell us where all the semen is. And eventually we want to be able to own us to look in and see how much semen they've got, what countries it can go to, and everything else. So, yeah.
Okay. Can you send semen in for assessments from home stud collections?
Yeah, we can sort something out on that side, definitely, as long as the stallion's been properly tested and everything, and up to date on the right requirements. But yes, we can have a look at that as well. Yeah.
What temperature do you store the frozen semen at?
What temperature? Frozen semen is stored at minus 196 degrees, so in liquid nitrogen, so it's suspended in amination, and it's there for indefinitely.
Please, could you explain the different requirements needed for different countries when stallions come to have their semen frozen?
Yeah, so the question is what the different requirements are, and it's a bit of a tricky one, because all different countries have slightly different requirements. So Australia is slightly different from New Zealand, which is slightly different from America, which is slightly different from Australia. So they're all pretty much testing for a similar or diseases. So they're testing for CEM, contagious equine metritis, EVA, and EIA. So yeah, they're looking for similar diseases, but they all have different times when they got to be done. And like for Australia, we can collect fairly quickly when the stallion arrives. But other countries, we can't collect until they've been here for 21 or 30 days or 28 days. So every country has its own slightly health status. So we have to try and work out a scheme for them.
From what age can you do castration extractions?
It depends slightly on the breed. So we have done 2-year-olds, and it's really, certain breeds take longer to mature. So a stallion will reach its sexual maturity really anything from the age of 2, usually up to the age of 3, 4, or 5. And some of the heavier breeds, it's definitely the 4 or 5. So it depends on the breed, but we have done 2-year-olds. So yeah.
And how many straws can you, on average, collect from a castrated testicle?
How many straws can we get? That can be anything from sometimes straws and doses. We look at doses. So about 10 doses. Sometimes we can get up to 60, 70 doses. So sometimes we've had an awful lot of doses. So it varies again on testicles, but it's a huge range there.
Is it possible to use extenders that favour female sperm?
There is something that you can meant to give called Philly Plus. I haven't, some people say that works well, but I haven't seen that, and so I don't know much about it. No, I don't know much about that side of it.
Do you have a flow cytometry set up at your facility?
Oh, I'd love to have a flow cytometer up here. And no, but we're very lucky. We've got Cogent down the road, and that's where all the sectioning of the semen is. But no, I'd love to have a flow cytometer here, but no, we haven't got one yet. It's on my Christmas wish list one day, maybe.
If Santa's feeling
If Santa's good, yeah, I've been a good boy, yeah.
Early bovine in vitro
Oh,
fertilization
God.
techniques resulted in some very large calves being produced.
Hmm.
Have there been any issues with foals produced from in vitro techniques having usual characteristics?
Well, I must admit, I'm not the right person to ask that question. I think I'm not going to try and guess or try and make up an answer that I don't know an answer to that, I'm afraid.
Is any research being done on colour genetics?
Again, I can't answer that one, sorry. I've drawn a blank on two. I can't give you an answer on that one, I'm afraid, either.
Is there a fertility issue with stallions with one testicle that's not descended?
No. Oh, if they've got one testicle, we've seen a lot of stallions come into the breeding shed with one testicle, and they have no fertility issues at all. And actually, sometimes that one testicle can compensate for the other one. So, yeah, we've had quite a few stallions come in. Yes, the slightly lower sperm numbers, but no, it doesn't seem to be a problem if they've got one testicle.
And if they've got one descended and one not?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it depends how bad it is, but sometimes if the other testicle is producing semen, it's poor quality. Obviously, that can mix up with the other one. But yeah.
How quickly do you need to collect the testicles for a horse getting euthanized?
So the animal's been put down. We really want the testicles here as soon as possible. So ideally within 6 to 12 hours. We have done some research work where it's been 24 hours later, but the sooner they're here, the better the quality of the semen. So it can deteriorate, but we have done some a bit older, but usually ideally within 6 to 12 hours is the best way.
I think on the colour genetics side, is there any way of knowing whether a cream gene will be passed on?
I think there's obviously with genetics, there's lots of ways that we can look at genetics, but we need geneticists to sort that out. And there's obviously certain labs that can look into that and certain genetics and do that. But that's, again, I'm afraid that's not a side that I profess to know a lot about.
Which stallion have you managed to, which stallion you have managed has produced the most straws and how many?
God, I can't remember that. We've had quite a few that produced a lot of straws. I know we had a Suffolk punch here that produced once something like 200 or 300 mils of semen once, if not more. It was a huge amount, but I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know, I'm afraid, how many they produced. So.
Is there vodka in your water bottle?
Is the vodka? Yeah, well, Jane, you said you were going to drink champagne tonight, so I don't know whether you're still there, Jane, but anyway, here's a drink for you. But no, there's I wish there was. Yeah.
Why are you allowed to inseminate but not scan? Would you like to see a change in this?
God, that's another question.
Personal opinion, please.
Personal opinion. God, I'm going to get shot in there. No, it's at the end of the day, we have to be careful and scanning. Yes, like anything. Obviously, if you're proficient at it, you can do it, and maybe. But at the end of the day, vets go to vet school to learn how to do these traits. They spend 5 years learning how to do it, and if they go wrong, they've got cover behind them to make sure they're all covered if anything goes wrong. We haven't, and it's important. Yes, AI going vaginally and AIing a mare is a fairly straightforward process. You can obviously easily rectal a mare and tear a mare, and it can be pretty much game over. So no, it's definitely a veterinary procedure, and also pinching twins and things like this and noticing them. So it's definitely a veterinary procedure. I know there's a lot of contentious issue and people will think differently, and people have done it, but they've got the back in the Royal Veterinary College, and they've got obviously good insurance behind them as well. So, and we haven't. So no, it's very much a veterinary.
How do you get a clone produced, and do they have a reduced fertility?
No, they don't have a reduced fertility. So the question was, the clones, where we get them produced? They're produced in America. It costs, I didn't know whether I put the prices about that, did I? So the produce a clone, it's about 60,000 or 70,000 pounds to do it. No, I think it's euros, pounds, euros. And to do a dog, it's about 30,000. So no, they don't have reduced fertility.
Okay. Rob asked, do stallions have a favourite collector?
Hi, Rob. Which Rob's this?
I'm not sure. Perhaps Rob?
Do they have? Yes, they do, and we certainly see that here. And on our collection forms, we actually put down who collects off that stallion. So there's sometimes there is a certain affinity. Like EJ is brilliant at collecting off Chatem. They've got a good affinity together. So yeah, it can be down to certain personalities. Are we out of questions now? Or?
Nearly. I think we've just got this.
Yeah, I think we'll call it. I think
Yeah.
we're pretty much there now. So I think we'll sort of wrap this up now, and really to thank you. Sorry if I haven't thanked anybody I shouldn't have thanked, and hope you've enjoyed it. It's a real trial for me. I really would like to hear through sending me messages, or after this replying back to what Rachel's going to send out to you. You know, please fill out the questionnaire. It'd be really good to hear back from it. It's the first time. I'd love to run more of these. So if you can give us some good feedback, positive, negative, whether you can hear me, couldn't hear me. Do you want some more live stuff down there? Do you want presentations? All that sort of stuff will be really good to hear. So I think it's we're coming to a close now. So Rachel, can you hear me okay now? Yeah, we ready to call it a night? I think we all I know I could do with a drink, and whether it be vodka or not. So I hope you enjoyed it. I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it. So I think if you can just spread the news far and wide, I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, I'll catch up with you soon. And anybody from abroad that I've been worked with, I hope you're looking after yourselves in these pressing times. You know, it is totally unprecedented at the moment, and I hope you stay safe and have a good night. Goodbye.